How are you this morning, Max?
I'm tired. What about you? I know your back's hurting.
My back is killing me, and I'm so tired. But I'm working on the owl puppet. I had an epiphany, so I actually remade the body because I had cut into it and tried so many things that I decided I'd just start with a fresh shell.
Right.
I think it's gonna work.
Yeah, the owl is proving to me to be an example of our exact opposite ways of thinking about things. Less so than other projects where it's sort of a right way and a wrong way, more of a, oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wouldn't even have touched the body until I had the engineering and the armature built. And then I'd figure out, okay, now how do I cover this?
See, I need the body to know how the engineering's gonna fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're excited to get on to a new project after that calendar.
Yeah. Well, technically, I'm still working on the calendar.
So what's today's topic?
I'm calling it love language.
Love language is good for this topic, I think.
Yeah, it's our love language.
Yeah, and it extends to
Your Alex.
Other members of the family.
To your Alex.
To my Alex.
Mhm.
No other Alex.
No,
my
nobody
Alex. My
else's.
Alex. And I think to your family and to my family in a more nebulous, tendril sort of a sense.
Well, the family that doesn't exist anymore, Ren and Colin wouldn't get any of our references.
Still, I mean, I suppose I get what you're saying, but it was still something that you grew up with, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It was something that you didn't develop it later in life.
Yeah.
You were,
it was very much, yeah. So Tiffany, like years later, like the kids, were like in elementary school or middle school. It might have even been before that when she and Matt were still together. But anyway, she out of nowhere one day, she's like, "Oh, I get it now. Everything you say is from a movie."
Or a show, or a book.
Yeah, but it took her years to figure it out. Yes. What the hell are these people talking about? So,
right. And we have since dubbed that Dharmocking. Right.
Yeah.
And
so you explained Dharmocking.
Yes.
The episode.
Yeah, that is a reference to a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. Dharma is the name of the episode. It is probably one of my favorite Star Trek things ever, in that it is a whole episode, including 2 action sequences around trying to figure out how to talk to people. It involves this alien race, the Tamarians. They refer to themselves as the children of Tama, that are speaking in, most of the words are coming through the universal translator as English, but it's dotted with proper nouns that don't make any sense, and the grammatical structure doesn't make any sense. The title of the episode comes from a statement that the Tamarian captain keeps making to Picard of Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. And he'd say this, and he'd look at him, kind of wait for a response, trying to say, are you getting, this look on his face like, are you getting any of this? And then, of course, Patrick Stewart would respond.
It's more of a look of, why aren't you getting any of this?
Right. And then what's funny is it would be reciprocated by the Enterprise crew, usually Picard, who would say something that we as the audience understand. We would like to open, a peace negotiation, and then they'd stop and kind of have the same face. And it was very well filmed in terms of mirroring this energy of 2 people saying things that to them made perfect sense, but couldn't figure out why the other person wasn't getting. Long story short, the Tamarians speak in what the show calls it metaphor. It's not literally correct, but close enough, where everything they say is a reference to something in their culture. And because they have such a rich shared culture as a people, their language and their ego structure develop to the point where they can say these comments and they get it.
Patrick Stewart, he tells the story of
Gilgamesh.
Yeah, which is a great story.
I just love that Patrick Stewart begins with this, I am not much of a storyteller, but I shall do my best. Yeah. And then he launches into this, like, the most rudimentary gestures to pretend like he's calling it from memory.
Yeah.
And it's Patrick Stewart calling Gilgamesh up from his head. in those Patrick Stewart Shakespearean tones. Yeah. They fought at Uruk. They fought in the temple. You're a great storyteller. Exactly. And then, God, I love Paul Winfield as Captain Dathon, as the Tamarian captain. Just kind of, he's only catching part of it, but he's getting the gist of it. But he's got this look on his face like, just tell me, man.
Yeah, it's the sharing of the story. It doesn't matter whether
that's what's important
he
to
gets
him.
it or not. Yeah.
And he just has that scene because he's got attacked by that beast and he's wounded. As he's listening to the story.
I'm so pleased.
And at one point he says, and Gilgamesh struck him with the sword, and he's gonna get Gilgamesh. His response is just so good.
Yeah.
Paul Winfield's a great character actor.
Yeah.
The two of them are so good at that. But yes, one of the things that I like about it is early on, it's the oldest goddamn story we're telling, and it's even within itself, there's sort of a subversion of a trope that had to have existed already at that point. Because when they're praying to the gods, to Gilgamesh is kind of on a bit of a rampage. He's got anger issues and et cetera, et cetera. The gods send Enkidu into his path. And the assumption early on in the story is that Enkidu was, they fight, but the idea is that Enkidu is not there to defeat him and thus save the people from Gilgamesh. Enkidu is there to become his friend. And that's the solution, is you find somebody.
Yeah.
You find that person that, oh, okay, I really like spending time with this guy. Let's go do cool shit.
So for me, what I've always liked about the story is that, well, and it was funny because I'm not religious and I don't believe in that whole, the universe provides idea, right?
Right.
But it's that idea of we don't always know what we need or what we want. And sometimes it doesn't come to us in the way we want it.
Right.
It comes to us in a way that after the fact we realize, oh, that was what I needed.
Right.
And that's what I think is great about that story.
That's a relationship. That's therapeutic. Killing the great bull of heaven. That's therapy for those two. Fighting monsters is their love language.
Yeah. But so the townspeople thought in their minds they were praying to take care of him, to kill him off or to whatever, to banish him or what have you. But really, instead, the gods gave him a friend.
What has developed out of that is Dharmocking is the practice of explaining something by saying, it's like that scene in this, or it's like that chapter of this. Mm-hmm. And how to the right person, not the cultural at large, although there is a lot of that, mm-hmm. especially nowadays. Mm-hmm. With the internet, we're more shared cultural touchstones. But with the right person, that makes 100% perfect sense. They know exactly what you're talking about. Alex and I have been doing this low-key for years, long before the episode hit. Mm-hmm. And then that episode just made it, oh, well, this is what we've been doing. Yeah. This explains everything. And then you and I did it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Almost day one. Almost.
Yeah. Especially, I think Firefly made it into our vocabulary pretty quickly. And yes. SGU.
Yes.
SGU, I think being...
Yeah, Stargate Universe and Firefly. I had already seen Firefly. I had already seen Stargate. We didn't watch Stargate first together. I couldn't remember. And we started pulling concepts out of there. Not a Firefly reference. There is a show called Being Human, specifically the BBC version, the British version, where it went for several seasons. Very good show, by the way. It's ludicrous concept of a ghost, a werewolf, and a vampire sharing an apartment.
Sounds like going into a bar.
Right, yes. A vampire, a ghost, and a werewolf, and a rabbi all get an apartment. No, the show is actually very good, but the vampire character was Mitchell. And what was it, the third season?
Yeah.
After a couple of seasons, the actor who played Mitchell went off to take a stab at being a movie star. Middling results so far. Point being, they killed off his character. And then when the show comes back, despite a couple of nifty episodes and ideas, it was not the same show. It could not sustain the same dynamic. So from then on, whenever a show, there's jumping the shark when a show resorts to stunts and they're obviously out of ideas. The show wasn't resorting to stunts and it wasn't necessarily out of ideas, but the dynamic had shifted to where those ideas no longer clung to the core the way they used to.
Yeah.
So we have since referred to that when a show has killed Mitchell.
Yeah.
It felt a little less character focused, not entirely, but there was definitely there's a lot of was pushed off from there. But yeah, so if we're asking about a show, it says, well, is this any good? Yeah, but they killed Mitchell, and then I know exactly what that means. Is okay, up to a certain point, the show stops being.
Yeah.
Our love language.
Yeah.
In case this was unclear, is Dharmocking. It encourages us to share books, shows,
Yeah.
movies for greater understanding. Like you need to sit down and watch this, and you'll understand me better. Has been a thing. We did that earlier. We don't do it as much
very
anymore.
early on. Yeah.
Right. Again, Firefly, SGU,
Chuck, Psych.
Yeah, Psych, big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and once we had these similar touchstones.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend too.
Yeah.
Which that'll be a whole episode on its own.
Yes.
But that came later. That was probably the most recent one, maybe.
Yeah, I mean
Community.
Community for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, our romantic relationship was torpedoed from the get-go, but I think that allowed us to not just continue, but truly deepen our friendship.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we will argue, we will bicker, but if we have these moments where we can say, it's this, please understand me,
yeah.
we can reach those understandings a little bit quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And if nothing else, let's find that moment of calm.
Yeah.
And that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Dharmocking is our collective love language. Alex and I do it, and most common examples are actually ultra personal.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't go too deep into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he and I have code words for things when it's important that okay, it needs to be about this for the next several minutes, and that's been helpful lately as he and I have aged into we've kind of calcified into old men who are on one hand more in touch with our feelings, but no more likely to talk about them openly.
Well, and is it more specifically around siblings where you don't necessarily want them to know what you're talking about?
No, not necessarily. Okay. There is a certain level of code.
Yeah.
But I think where this sort of stuff is concerned, there's always a part of us that wants to include the siblings. We don't want to keep these references from them.
Yeah.
We just have to, we just got to use them at the right time.
Okay.
Got to deploy them strategically. And I imagine the younger siblings, the lower half siblings, probably have their own exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely where the generational
divide. I don't see them together very often, so it's hard to say. But you're probably right.
The point is I wouldn't necessarily notice. Yeah, Mary had pointed out regarding the whole concept of lower half siblings, how while she and Anna are probably the closest in age, there is definitely a dividing line there. And part of it's their natural personalities. Yeah. And the other part of it is the upper half has kids, or kid in my case. But there's parenting going on. Right. And there's a restructure of what you have to include every time you make a plan. Yeah. That's a very important dividing line. Yeah, it's the upper half, which is Mary, Alex, and myself, and the lower half, which is Anna, Tom, Patrick.
So for anyone who doesn't know the actual therapeutic term love language, it was coined by a gentleman called Dr. Gary Chapman. Mm-hmm. And basically he decided that there were 4 types of expressing affection.
Okay.
And
did he codify it to 4 types, or did he just identify 4 types and leave it like flexible? Or is that just a later addition by people?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm just curious if you happen to know.
Yeah.
Because people are definitely adding it. Or has love language itself become a catch-all term, almost a Dharmak itself for different types of expression?
Yeah, definitely.
How funny. Anyways, continue.
Anyway, so, I mean, specifically he started it for couples. Yeah. I think it was very specifically for couples therapy. But it has branched out to this is the way that we deal with everyone, or that there are ways that we deal with everyone.
Interpersonal communication.
Yeah. So, even for colleagues at work, you have a love language of some kind with them, with your parents, with your children, with lovers, friends, etc.
And naturally, it's different for every context, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so when I was in group, I did it, and so I brought it home to you, and we did it together.
Yeah, I've heard about it for years, but I've never really dabbled in it. Yeah. I was aware that it existed, is pretty much where I was at.
Yeah. And so it's just a series of questions. Some of them seem very repetitive and just worded a little bit differently. Right. But the idea is that you are either a person, and it goes both ways also, to be clear, so that it's not only how you like to receive love, but how you give love. Right. And sometimes that's not the same as the person you're sharing it with. Right. And the 4, if I can find all of them. So words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
That's 5.
Correct.
Okay.
Did I say something else?
I think you might have said 4, but whatever.
Okay, fair enough. And what's funny is that the first time I did this, I obviously thought about just in general. And then obviously when we did it together, it was more specific to you.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew that physical touch for you would be like almost a 0, but I was actually surprised at how much it was for me.
Hello
it was. Yeah. But the receiving gifts has always kind of been an issue for me since I've been reading these questions, because I'm just not.
You're very uncomfortable being given stuff outside of certain contexts.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'm just ultimately flat out neutral to the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gifts oftentimes seem like they have a lot of pressure behind them. And that might be just Christmas specific, or someone's birthday.
Yeah, you do definitely have look down your nose at those sorts of occasions.
I do.
And you definitely tie it to that.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm very much like, I say it all the time. I'm like, oh, I bought you a gift, and it's like, shampoo, like a certain shampoo, right?
Which is great shampoo.
Good. I'm glad that you like it.
I'm enjoying that. Yeah.
But that's my kind of gifts. That's I know Max needs this, and he's never gonna buy it for himself, so I want to do this for him.
My stuff isn't necessarily neat
random.
though. I mean, I'm a very random gift giver.
Yeah.
I'm very much. Oh, I saw this. You should have this.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, your gifts tend to be much larger.
Are they? I tend to, or are they just the ones? And what was that one? Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we're talking about the corset. That was a big one, and it was very early into our relationship.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of money.
Yes, but I
still adore it to this day.
I'd be lying if I said that mattered.
I know.
That part, I can't. I mean, I should have.
Well, right now, if you spent $200 on something so frivolous, you would cringe.
Yeah.
But back then, you didn't seem to.
I just didn't have a clear concept of where my money was coming and going.
Right.
I just didn't.
My type of gift giving is, let me pay for you to get garbage cans, because this is ridiculous.
I would have won that fight with Waste Management if you'd have let me.
It was unnecessary.
It was unnecessary, but it was the principle at that point. But no, it worked out for the best. I'll acknowledge that.
Anyway, words of affirmation, I mean, when I need them, I need them. Yeah. Right? And I think that
I think we're both I think we're both that way, as in we don't necessarily need to hear it on a regular basis, but when we need it, oh God, it's there's no negotiating.
Yeah. And we're very good at saying, I need this.
Yes. Tell me this kind of a situation.
Yeah. And then acts of service, I think, are our biggest.
That's kind of our default.
Quality time, acts of service kind of meld, I almost feel like, into each other.
I don't necessarily agree, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I think we default to active service without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Whereas quality time is, I'm not saying an effort, but it requires scheduling.
It does.
It requires a plan, whereas we'll do an active service and barely be aware that we did it. Mm-hmm. It just integrates into our day.
Yeah, I guess because of quality time, I see it almost as an active service, because it's usually project.
True. That is not,
so we can't. Yeah. We don't just go to a movie together.
Right, or rarely. Yeah.
Or it's usually let's sit down and do the video, the podcast on Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
And this is our quality time, but there's a function. There's something we're doing. We don't watch Maisel together anymore because it's just too hard to.
But we do
want to do it.
But we are immediately shooting texts back and forth throughout the process.
Yeah, we didn't watch Dexter together. Like, it's been a long time since we did any of that. Just because we're not on the same wavelength. We're just, sometimes I don't feel into it when you are, or whatever.
Which, considering that we've established this as a touchstone, the sharing of this information and these experiences, that's an interesting observation, because we're still watching the same stuff for the most part. Like, you bailed on Dexter, which I get it, but we're still watching a lot of the same stuff. It doesn't really work in audio form, but that Lenny Bruce shrug to the question of, but do you love it? And he just shrugs, turns, and walks away. That's yes. Yeah. This is driving you crazy. I mean, we'll say this sort of thing to each other. It's like, you have nothing but complaints. You have nothing but you are angry. You're put out. You're contemptible of the process, but you're still doing it. And the only thing that we have for the other one is just we just do that Lenny Bruce shrug and walk off.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Pastrami is another one.
Yeah, that's another Maisel one. Yeah, that's another one that we got from Maisel. That's great. And that goes to first episode when Joel is trying to work out the jokes.
Is it the very first
I want to say it might be
still?
because he's still trying to be a comic at this point. And he asks Midge, which is the funnier.
No, he doesn't ask Midge. He asks a woman walking by. He's sitting on the stoop.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I could have sworn he's asking
He
Midge.
says, which is funnier, roast beef or pastrami? And she yells back, pastrami.
I'll have to watch this again. I remember.
Yeah. And I want to say it might be the second.
We'll watch it again. Yeah, I want to watch it again. Point being, so we can't even agree on this detail, but we agree that the idea of which is funnier.
Yeah.
You say the funnier thing.
Yeah.
And
all we have to say is it pastrami?
And I'd say that's even probably evolved into what's the better idea.
Yeah.
Well, is this a good idea or is this a good idea? If they're both good ideas, because roast beef is good. Which one's pastrami? Oh, that's the pastrami.
Yeah.
And that one clicked in fast.
Yeah.
Like instantly. Yeah. Even though we cannot agree how that scene played out. I believe you.
I watched it more recently.
Yeah, hence I believe you, but my memory clearly is playing out a different version of that scene, and that's funny.
Okay, so back to love language.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess we said it, right? Is that, between quality time and acts of service is kind of our...
That's where we live with each other. And I think the world at large, for the most part...
I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Yeah. I certainly don't want to be touched by random people. I limit...
I agree. However, I'm much more of a hugger than you
are. Yes. Words of affirmation, that's almost purely a professional thing for me.
Yeah.
As we were talking earlier, Mary had said this just the other day in response to me cracking jokes about my mother's prayers involving St. Joseph. And I did a bit immediately involving his woodworking show. Yeah. But, and Mary rightly recognized, even before I even truly realized what it was I was doing, that was me just engaging with what my mom's doing in a way that I was comfortable with, as opposed to just, blowing it off.
Yeah. So I interrupted you, but
you're good.
So what also made me think of this too is the whole words of affirmation, and the times it's significant when we need it, and otherwise it's not. Yeah. It's not necessary, right? I actually was thinking of the whole, I got the list right in my pocket. The opposite of that being when I did give you a list of nice things I have to say about you, and how actually meaningful that was.
Yeah, that was strangely hard for you to do. I'm kidding.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
No, it was very hard for you to do the list for me.
It was very hard to do, and I'll admit that. But no, for me, the joke is you have the list of my flaws ready to go at all times.
It's laminated.
Yeah, no, the list of things right with me, that took some effort.
It didn't.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, we kept putting off discussing it. So the joke was, this is taking a while. Because it was just, that for me, the funny part was, you're ready with one, but we're into week 2 of waiting on the other one.
For me, because I remember specifically why I kept waiting was because they were all in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I
just hadn't actually gotten them on paper, and it was frustrating me that I didn't have the time to just make the damn list.
Yeah, no, logically I knew that, but it was that's still too much fun not to play with.
And quite often, I mean, again, I guess that's with touch though too. Is when we need a hug, we need a fucking hug. Yes, that's true. But otherwise, stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't until recent. I mean, I guess our relationship is probably what changed it, what altered it for me, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, I only know you starting with our relationship, so my frame of reference is naturally skewed, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one very key way that we communicate with each other, family, and the rest of the world, more or less.
Yeah, it's harder with the rest of the world, though.
Yeah, I do find that is one of the advantages to that slight monoculture that's developing.
Yeah. But it's that whole idea of how you can take a word and make it mean something else.
You know, it was Vin Diesel?
Emotional, yeah.
Yeah. And he came in, he recorded all I'm exaggerating, but 200 different versions of I Am Groot for every situation.
Yeah. Anyway, any last words on love language or pastrami or?
No, I think we got the basics out, and I think this is going to be very helpful going forward with other episodes. Which is why I think we should have. Which is why I'm glad we got this one out early.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that we reference over and over.
Yeah, it's going to set the tone, and we'll be able to kind of come back to elements of this and talk about other things.
And extend
some
of the things that we brought up too.
Yeah, I mean, things we didn't cover. The made famous by Groucho Marx and later sung by Robin Williams, Lydia the Tattooed Lady. We'll get there. We could probably just talk about movies with weird emotional impacts just all by themselves. But again, that's are all more specific things for more specific times. You have, I mean, do you have any other thoughts on any of that stuff?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. Well, we'll end it here then, and we'll see if we can't make something salvageable out of all this. Bye.
Okay, bye.